What if everything we thought we knew about Abraham Lincoln wasn't the full story? For more than 150 years, historians argued over a simple question, one that should have had a clear answer. Who was his mother? Not the women who raised him, but the truth of where she came from. Because hidden inside that answer is something no one expected. A genetic trail that doesn't lead to Kentucky, or even Europe, but to something far older, something buried deep in human history. And it changes the way we understand Abraham Lincoln forever. This is not just a story about a president. It's a story about identity, about mystery, and about a scientific discovery that reached back not hundreds, but tens of thousands of years to uncover a truth history could never record. But what the DNA revealed next was even more unexpected, because it didn't just answer the question, it opened a far deeper one that no historian had ever imagined asking. And if that wasn't enough, there may still be a way to find Abraham Lincoln's actual DNA, hidden in objects that have survived for more than a century, waiting to be tested.
Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll see Abraham Lincoln in a way no textbook has ever shown you.
February 12, 1809. A log cabin in Hardin County, Kentucky. In the cold half-darkness, a boy was born who would one day hold a nation together. His name was Abraham Lincoln. We know almost everything about him: his laws, his letters, his grief, his genius. But there is one thing historians argued about for more than 150 years, something so fundamental, so intimate, that its mystery shadowed the very roots of Lincoln's identity. Who was his mother, really? Genealogists knew that Nancy's mother was a woman named Lucy Hanks, a strong-willed frontier woman who had Nancy out of wedlock, before eventually marrying a man named Henry Sparrow in 1790. But who was Lucy's mother? That was where the argument began. For generations, two camps formed. The first, supported by some of the most respected Lincoln scholars of the 20th century, argued that Lucy was the daughter of Joseph Hanks and his wife Anne Lee. Solid frontier stock, straightforward lineage. The second camp, called the Shipley theorists, said Lucy was not born a Hanks at all. They believed she was born a Shipley, the daughter of a man named Robert Shipley, and had only taken the Hanks name through a brief marriage. Both sides had evidence. Both sides had passion. Neither side had proof. The argument churned through generations of historians, filling journals and conference rooms with competing interpretations. It was a cold case, and it looked like it might stay that way forever. Until science intervened.
The evidence clearly supports Hanks.
It must be Shipley.
In 2002, a genealogist named Suzanne Hallstrom founded the Hanks DNA Project. The goal was elegant in theory and almost impossibly difficult in practice. Use mitochondrial DNA to resolve the argument once and for all. Mitochondrial DNA, mtDNA, is the genetic material passed almost exclusively from mother to child, generation after generation, essentially unchanged. It is, in effect, a genetic record of the unbroken maternal line stretching back thousands of years. But there was a profound complication. There are no living descendants of Abraham Lincoln. His only son to have children was Robert Todd Lincoln. The line continued through his grandson and ended there in 1985 with no heirs. To find Lincoln's maternal DNA, the researchers would have to go sideways, tracing other branches of the family tree, identifying living people who shared the same maternal line through Lucy Hanks's other descendants. It took years, hundreds of letters, dozens of DNA samples collected from across the country. But they found them.
The researchers identified two groups of test subjects. Group A, matrilineal descendants of the Anne Lee Hanks line, people whose maternal ancestry traced through Lucy Hanks' Sparrow. Group B, matrilineal descendants of the Shipley sisters, specifically Naomi Shipley Mitchell and Rachel Shipley Berry. The lab was Gene by Gene Limited in Houston, Texas. They used full mitochondrial sequencing, not just a fragment of the genome, but the entire mitochondrial sequence for maximum certainty. On October 21, 2015, timed to mark the 150th anniversary year of Lincoln's assassination, the Hanks DNA Project announced its results. Group A, the Hanks line, all matched each other. They shared a mitochondrial haplogroup, X1c. Group B, the Shipley line, tested as haplogroup H, a completely different lineage, no relationship to Group A whatsoever. The Shipley theory, after more than a century of argument, was genetically disproven. Lucy Hanks was born a Hanks, the daughter of Joseph Hanks and Ann Lee. And Abraham Lincoln's maternal great-grandparents were confirmed, and Abraham Lincoln's mitochondrial DNA haplogroup was X1c.
Haplogroup X1c is not a footnote in genetics. It is one of the rarest maternal haplogroups on Earth. Haplogroup X, overall, accounts for only about 2% of the population across Europe, the Near East, and North Africa. But X breaks into two major branches. X2 is the one most Europeans carry, spread across the Mediterranean and the Caucasus. X1 is the other branch, and X1 is dramatically rarer. X1 and its subclade X1c is largely restricted to North Africa, the Horn of Africa, and the ancient Near East. In Europe, X1c is vanishingly uncommon. Confirmed European carriers have turned up in small numbers in Ireland, Norway, and Italy, scattered, isolated, as though carried there long ago by individuals rather than populations. The people who carry the highest concentrations of haplogroup X in the world today include the Druze, a small, insular, religious, and ethnic community living in Israel, Lebanon, Jordan, and Syria, whose genetic heritage reflects some of the most ancient populations of the Near East. So the question that now confronts us is remarkable, almost disorienting. What is Abraham Lincoln, the frontier boy from Kentucky, the symbol of the American heartland, doing with a maternal lineage whose deepest roots lie in North Africa and the ancient Near East?
To understand how Lincoln's maternal line carries this ancient signature, we have to travel back, not centuries, but millennia. Haplogroup X diverged from its parent lineage approximately 30,000 years ago, near the end of the Pleistocene, as the Ice Age approached its peak and our ancestors were still carving tools from stone. From that origin point, Haplogroup X spread across a remarkable range, into the Near East, across North Africa, into Central Asia, and, in the form of a related subclade, even into the indigenous peoples of North America, where it appears in up to 25% of some Algonquian-speaking peoples. The X1 branch, however, mostly stayed in North Africa and the Near East. Its appearance in Europe was limited and sporadic. Some researchers link these scattered European traces to ancient Phoenician trade routes. Others point to early Neolithic migrations from the Levant, the first farmers who spread into Europe thousands of years ago, carrying their genes with them. Whatever the mechanism, the conclusion is this: somewhere in the deep ancestry of Ann Lee, Abraham Lincoln's maternal great-grandmother, there lived a woman who carried this lineage. She may have lived in what is now Libya, or Lebanon, or Egypt. She may have lived 10,000 years ago, or 15,000. Her name is lost forever, but her DNA traveled on. Mother to daughter, through millennia and continents and migrations that predate civilization itself, until it arrived in Lucy Hanks, and then in Nancy Hanks, and then in the heart of the most consequential president America has ever known.
The DNA resolved one mystery, but another remains and always will. Nancy Hanks's father is unknown. She was born out of wedlock, and whoever Lucy Hanks was involved with left no recorded name, no document, no trace. Lincoln himself seemed to sense the shadow. He told his law partner, William Herndon, in a private moment, that he believed his mother was the illegitimate daughter of a well-bred Virginia farmer or planter. He believed he inherited his intellectual gifts from this unknown man. Whether Lincoln was right, we cannot say. The paternal side of Nancy Hanks's parentage is beyond what DNA alone can reconstruct,
and no documentary evidence has ever filled the gap. Half of Nancy Hanks's heritage remains in shadow, and perhaps that is fitting. Lincoln himself understood better than most that some truths remain incomplete, that history is never as clean as the stories we tell about it.
The 2015 study established something unprecedented, a reference DNA profile for Abraham Lincoln's maternal line, the specific X1C haplogroup with its unique additional mutations that could theoretically be matched against any authenticated Lincoln relic. Several such relics exist. The most dramatic is the cloak worn by Mary Todd Lincoln to Ford's Theater on the night of the assassination. It bears bloodstains, though researchers note that analysis suggests the blood may belong to Major Henry Rathbone, who was also in the presidential box and was stabbed by Booth rather than Lincoln himself. Next-generation DNA sequencing technology may one day be applied to a wider range of relics, hair, bone fragments, fabric, seeking traces of authentic Lincoln DNA beneath contamination and time. If any material were found to carry X1C with the specific mutations identified in 2015, it would powerfully confirm the relic's authenticity. It would also give us something that has never existed, the direct, confirmed genetic fingerprint of Abraham Lincoln. We think we know Abraham Lincoln. We know his poverty, his brilliance, his grief. We know the log cabin and the law books and the Gettysburg Address. But here, in the quiet language of genetics, is something we did not know. Somewhere in the unbroken chain of mothers that produced him, a chain that stretches back not years, not centuries, but tens of thousands of years, there was a woman whose homeland was not Kentucky, not Virginia, not the British Isles. Her homeland was North Africa, or the ancient Levant, or the Horn of Africa. She lived before writing, before cities, before the nation that Abraham Lincoln would one day be called upon to save had any idea it would exist. And she passed something forward, a small encoded signature in the heart of every cell that traveled through generations of daughters until it arrived at last in a boy born in a log cabin in the Kentucky winter. History, as Lincoln himself knew better than most, is never only what we can see. It reaches further than we imagine, and it connects us, all of us, to shores and ancestors we will never fully know.
Thanks for watching. Please do subscribe, like, and comment any history you would like us to talk about. Peace.